Hello everyone, welcome back. Today is October 12th. It is 10:52 a.m. Before I start today's video, just want to acknowledge that I recently passed 350 subscribers, so I'm very grateful for that. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and watches. I guess the goal is to just keep putting out content and just keep seeing where this goes. Today's video is going to be about how you can use humor as an antidote to suffering. So I had a discussion in my classroom the other day with some students, kind of with the whole class, but with some students specifically, about why I tend to use so much humor and make jokes just about everything or take light of just about everything. And this is as a social studies teacher. And so at the new school I'm teaching at, many students aren't accustomed to someone standing at the front of the class kind of making light of any topic. In particular, what happened where the students were kind of surprised that I would, make a joke about a topic was that we were doing an activity, and I guess the kids were looking at consequences, and one of the historical events they looked at was 9/11 and kind of the consequences downstream of that. And the student group said we didn't want to draw 9/11, and I laughed. I said, why not? Like, it'd be pretty easy. It's basically two lines and then a third line, like a plane flying into a building. And some of the kids were quite shocked that I would, make that joke. And in the days following, we had a discussion about that. And I said to the students that there is a tremendous value in having the kind of mental or neuroplasticity of a topic, of a subject where you can laugh at something. And my argument to the students was that if you can't really laugh at something, if you can't have a humorous discussion about a topic, it's going to be almost impossible for you to have a very serious discussion on that same topic. It's going to be very challenging for you to have a discussion on that topic that goes against your beliefs, your values, and to really seriously consider the alternative perspective that the person in front of you is offering. My belief for why that is because if you can't kind of be open to these new ideas, kind of this plasticity in your mind about your ideas and your perspectives and your point of view, you just can't really entertain an idea that's different than yours. You're kind of stuck in this solid mindset of, this is how the world is and this is how it should be. And if someone, let's say, tries to make a joke, they kind of brush up against this wall, right? Like it's clashing because again, you're stuck in this mindset that this is how the world is and should be. So you're not really open to this new idea, to new perspectives, to new understandings of the same issue. And quite frankly, these kids are 15, so that means that they were born well after 9/11. They don't really fully understand what happened in 9/11. They all seem to have very simplistic understanding. They kind of just understood that two buildings were hit. We didn't go too much into the history of 9/11 and all the consequences. I didn't think that they were ready for the lecture of what happened in, the Middle East, the war on terror, the search for weapons of mass destruction, the creation of numerous, I guess you could call them like failed states, numerous countries whose democracy, whose quality of life has just been completely eroded, the amount of human suffering that came as a consequence of those actions, and then even the history prior, right? So, the common understanding is that 9/11 was an attack committed by Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, which is why they hunted him for so long. And students don't really understand or are unlikely aware of, how did Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden come to be? Who funded them? Who trained them? What was America's role in that? What was Russia's role in that, the communists as well. And so, they're stuck in this very rigid mindset that 9/11 was an isolated event, but they don't see the full picture of this. And so coming back to the main idea that, when you're open to hearing something humorous, kind of laughing at a subject, you're more open to new possibilities, new realities of it. And that can hold true of, something you're learning in the classroom. That can hold true of perhaps something that happened to you in the past, perhaps something that you're maybe anxious about in the future. And, related to the things in the past, it's not necessary. I don't know if humor is the best route to use for trauma. That might be more of a defense mechanism from what I've learned from psychologists and psychiatrists is, there's other things associated with trauma that you would like to look for. But particularly when it comes to learning, I find that if you are not able to laugh at something or share a joke or hear a humorous perspective, you're probably too close-minded to really open up yourself to new ideas. And it is a blanket statement, a blanket understanding, particularly when you have young minds in front of you and smart kids and they're still learning and still absorbing information, that's very different than if they were an adult and they're very much like, nope, 9/11 was XYZ, not ABC. So we don't joke about 9/11. Not that you should necessarily be making jokes about 9/11. Obviously, it was a terrible event. The consequences that poured downstream of it were also terrible. I would say that because of that event and events before it, people in Afghanistan, people in Iraq, people in various countries in the Middle East are still suffering to this day. And I think that, there's a time and place to really teach people in a serious manner, but there's a time and place to test and see whether or not people are flexible mentally, neurologically enough to engage in new ideas that they're unfamiliar with. So there's my 2 cents on how humor is kind of a metric tool to understand how open someone is to new ideas. And if we're looking more so at suffering, again, that's kind of like alleviating a tough situation. So I know, like, growing up and even now, a lot of my guy friends, we would use humor when we were doing something very intense, very difficult, to lighten the mood, to, ease the tension. I still remember when I was in high school, we were on the basketball team and we were doing a core workout and everybody was in a group together. We're on the floor. We're doing various leg movements to work out our lower abs. And one of the movements was, you kind of swing your legs like you're riding a bike. And I remember my coach saying, "Ride the bike faster, like you stole it." And everybody starts laughing and everybody's now a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less tense, and then we go right back into the hard work. But it made that experience more enjoyable. And using humor is often not easy, right? It takes a lot of intelligence to, use humor, timing as well. It's kind of social acuity and skill to be able to use humor correctly and appropriately and in a manner that people actually find funny. But when you do use it appropriately and correctly, and it does produce laughter, it tends to kind of lower tension. As an observer of groups of students and people, it tends to show how open are people to this idea. Once they're laughing, they're essentially open to hearing something new as well. They have this degree of plasticity in their neural network that allows them, to be open and receptive to new ideas. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below. By no means am I a expert in the brain or neurons or anything like that. This is just stuff that I've learned, stuff that I've experienced in the classroom from my own teaching. So let me know what you think. Thank you. Take care.